It looks like it just happened. I can smell the rubber. The truck is fine. The trailer on its side. I might be here until 2 in the morning.
Are you serious?
This is not ideal. This is not ideal. I'm heading back to Bloomington, and I've been on the road since, for like 5.5 hours. Had some traffic issues, and this is going to compound that.
This seems like the perfect timing to start the podcast, too.
It's extra safe. I'm in park.
And just to throw this out, those of you, I got to point something out. I made a little uh-oh. If you're watching the show on YouTube, I forgot to hit the record button at the very beginning. So you cut in right into Mitchell's madness. I'll go ahead and re-describe it real quick. Mitchell is heading towards Indiana from his home in South Carolina. He hit traffic there as an overturned semi, and there may be no end in sight for him right now.
You know what's really funny is that
I'm begging for you to say something funny. I haven't laughed yet.
We did all that praise for Joe the producer. And now you didn't hit record, so he's not going to hear it.
Boy, we have the audio version of the show is complete. It started.
Okay.
I just forgot to hit record on YouTube.
Okay.
See, I've been having Joe produce this show for me. I'm not used to hitting record for the podcast, but
I was going to say,
Joe, if you're listening or watching on YouTube, you need to go listen to the audio version of the show. Yes. If you want to hear us talk good about you at the beginning. So apologies for those of you who primarily watch the show on YouTube. You missed the first minute and a half of the show. Just go find us on Spotify.
We need
Anchor.
Joe back. We need
Joe back. We need Joe back. Go back to on Spotify or Anchor, and you can catch the first part of the show. Again, my apologies for that. But Mitchell's in traffic. Dustin is planning a trip of. How long are you going to be heading up here? Are you going to be on the road for 2 or 3 weeks?
I will be. So my plan is to leave on Tuesday, whatever day that is, like the 26th, 27th maybe. And then I'm going to be in Indiana at a fall wedding. Yikes. And after that, I will be... My plan is to be at the Indiana game on October 8th against Michigan. I believe that's also homecoming. And then I will start my trek back down. Yeah, that's not an ideal homecoming game for Indiana, number one. And then I'll start my trek down to Gainesville sometime that week.
Yeah, Indiana typically plays Michigan or Ohio State at home or on the road, one or the other. And choosing either of them as your homecoming game, unless you know they're going to have a down year, seems like a horrible decision.
Did you just say that they either play Michigan and Ohio State at home or on the road? Where else would they play them?
No, like it's alternating years is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, gotcha.
Because they play Ohio State on the road this year instead.
Okay, I'm with you now. I'm on board.
Hopefully, maybe I'm just an idiot. If you're all like Dustin and didn't understand the way that I described that, feel free to tell me. So I'll get better.
I'm gonna be honest. Kind of thing. I was confused as well, but I think Dustin and I dumb guys. We're dumb guys. So
we've always said facts are optional.
To understand. Yeah. So this. Oh, now there are people getting out of their cars.
Oh boy.
What is happening on this road?
Did you bring your golf? Did you take your golf clubs? Because you could practice some swings.
Ooh, I got a new 3-wood. It came today. I may show you on the show. It is hot.
You'll have time to get out of the car.
I could get out of the car and run a marathon at the rate that we're going right here. There are people that look like they're not going to be
GPS at all.
Yeah, it's on. So I'm in a rental car as well that I really don't know how to work. And it's got this fancy like CarPlay that I don't have in my other car. And the estimated time of arrival is going up. I'll tell you that.
But it didn't warn you of the traffic ahead.
Dude, this trailer, when I pulled up, I could smell the burnt rubber. Like it had just happened.
That is
maybe
horrible timing.
30 seconds before I got here.
Oof.
Yeah, not ideal.
We're glad that you're safe, and we hope that the driver of this truck is safe.
I know.
But maybe we'll get to see Mitchell's the new 3-wood.
We're gonna have to give him the thumbs down. He's given us the direction of anytime he has glitching problems to give him the thumbs down, and he'll readjust
make an adjustment.
Am I back?
We don't even have. Do we have audio from Mitchell right now?
I believe we do.
Mitch.
Yes. There we go.
All right. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Now I don't even know what's happening. Now the car's turning off. This is a problem. This is not good.
This is like Smart House. Did you watch that? The Disney original Smart House where the house just took over these people's lives?
I'm getting out of the car.
I'm glad we're documenting this. I hate that this is happening to you, but this is great content.
Dude, I am in that part of the drive. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm in the part of the drive through the Blue Ridge Mountains where there's like 20 miles between exits. I'm probably on mile 8.
Oh my God.
Like, this is a problem.
So you were supposed to get into Indiana at 3 o'clock in the morning, correct?
Yeah. My ETA to Bloomington was 2:41. And now it's maybe next week. I don't know.
Well, I guess, Mitchell, before we get into football talk, since you're out of your car, Dustin seemed pretty interested in wanting to see your new golf clubs.
Oh, yeah, I can get it.
He's jacked about this. He's excited.
Dude, it's so good. All these people behind me, first of all, can you see all that?
I can.
Nightmare. It's a nightmare fuel.
We may need to preview part of this during Jim's show tomorrow for the video aspect of it.
This is like something where you see on Twitter where it's like always be golfing.
Yeah.
Like this is, I'm just in the middle of traffic. I'm going to be taking swings. Okay. Let's see. So it's an older club. It's a Titleist, the 915. Do you remember that?
Not
right here.
Okay. Yes. Oof.
Oh, that face. So I'm going to need, this is like my, I usually hit a 2-iron that goes the distance that I need it to, and will probably go about the same distance as this. But my 2-iron goes just a little bit too low to be aggressive on par 5s. So I got this thing to get some height, some verticality. We're going to tear the foul course up tomorrow. That's just what I'm going to tell you.
All right. What time's your tee time?
Yeah, I may have to cancel it now that you say that.
Getting to the foul course?
I was just going to say, yeah, he's going to be pulling it. It's like John Daly, right? Like he spent all night out drinking and then he'd show up 5 minutes before his tee time, except it won't be Mitchell drinking. It'll be him trying to get through traffic.
I may still show up shirtless. We'll have to see.
What was the bet about being shirtless we had a couple of weeks ago with Iowa? Did they
if they covered the 23-point spread, which they did.
Who had to be shirtless?
Me.
No, it was the over.
Was it the over?
I don't remember what the over
was. It was the over. And the over was like 40.
Well, if you're listening and you know the correct answer to this and you want to point this out to us, you're more than welcome to comment. Let us know if somebody knows. Or if you, I mean, honestly, most of you watching and or listening, and if you're listening, it doesn't matter. But if you're watching the show, you probably don't want to see either of these people or myself shirtless for sure.
That's especially true for me.
You can stay silent all you want.
Nobody's going to chime in.
Let's get into
this. There's a chance. I was just thinking about this. There's a chance that when you're listening to this, Mr. or Mrs. Listener, I will still be in this traffic.
We need to have
that's true. It'll come out on that's true. So Mitchell, hopefully this is not the case. If this show comes out tomorrow, actually you'll be on Indiana Sports Beat Radio tomorrow as well. There's a chance you could be doing that from the traffic.
If I show up and I am still taking practice swings with this 3-wood on Jim's show in the morning, I will be one unhappy camper. I'll tell you that.
All right. Well, with that, let's go ahead and start talking a little bit of football. Do we want to talk about anything that happened in the Western Kentucky game at all first, or do we want to go straight into Cincinnati? Where do we want to start? Because in my brain, I'm like, we've talked enough about Western Kentucky this week on ISB, but obviously Mitchell hasn't been with us. Mitchell, do you want to give us just your overall thoughts? I know we talked about the fact that you played WKU a bunch throughout your career. And to me, it wasn't surprising at all that they were able to put up a bunch of points. I'm surprised that Indiana wasn't able to hold them off in regulation. But I think a lot of people always expect Indiana, just no matter who the group of 5 opponent or the FCS opponent is, that they should just blow them out of the water because they're the Big Ten school. Whereas I think WKU could go toe-to-toe with 75% of the Big Ten programs.
You nailed it. I think if this was Michigan that beat a Western Kentucky team at home, and maybe Michigan's a bad example. I think Michigan and Ohio State are pretty elite this year. But most years, any team in the Big Ten is going to look at Western Kentucky on their schedule and circle that one as this is a game we need to win, but it's going to be a lot harder than you think it's going to be. The fans will look and, oh, it's just Western Kentucky. Who are they? They've never done anything. All they do is score a bunch of points and be really, really good over the past 20 years. Or 10 years, however it is. I mean, they're a solid program. I thought they played great defense. At that win, just like last year, is huge for the program, especially in the way that they did it. Played really not that great, and to find a way to win, that's valuable as we get going into the Big Ten season after this week, obviously.
Well, and I think it's the first 3 weeks have really been valuable. And I keep using this as an example, and maybe this will prove me right, maybe this will prove me wrong. But again, you go back to what Minnesota did in 2019. They went 11-2. And they are not that's not to say Indiana's an 11-2 football team this year. But you look at the first 3 games, they played South Dakota State, Georgia Southern, and Fresno State on the road, and won all 3 of those games, I think, by 1 possession. I think it might have been even like 4 or 5 points. Those were tight games. So the fact that Indiana, maybe it hasn't looked good, especially in the first half, it's looked ugly. But the fact that they're able to pull out wins gives this team confidence that no matter what the score is, what the odds are, they've found a way to come together when it matters most, and they've come up with victories. And I think that from a mental standpoint, from a confidence standpoint, bodes very well for this team. Now, we'll talk about this later, but they've got to play better in the first half of some of these games because they're not going to have the talent or the firepower to come back from 10 points, 17 points down and win a football game against a lot of Big Ten teams. So I think there is some good in the fact that Indiana's found ways to win despite, having their backs up against the wall in a couple games. It's also some negatives with the way they've been playing in the first half.
Yeah, can I interject something real quick?
Of course.
I have to back up real quick because apparently we're doing something. I'm going the wrong direction on the highway. You don't get to do that every day. But did you guys see the stat where, I don't know who does it, maybe it's PFF or something, but it's like expect.
We lost you after expect.
I don't know what happened there. It's I guarantee it's the car play. Has to be the car
true.
play.
You might have hooked up to your Bluetooth, Mitch.
I don't know what. Oh, let's see if he's got him now. I don't hear any sound. PFF is going to be. It's going to be an interesting statistic.
Are you the one, Dustin, who said they're no longer a fan of PFF? Who was that talking to?
Correct. That was me because of when they ranked Alex Hornibrook as like the top 3 quarterback or the top quarterback in the Big Ten 3 weeks in a row. He was nowhere close to being the best. Like that was over Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields. I'm sure there were some other big names that I can't think of at the time. Maybe Michael Penix. I don't remember who all was in the Big Ten throwing passes at that time. But there were a lot of really talented players that he was getting put ahead of, and that was not. I mean, just maybe it wasn't Justin Fields, but regardless, there were a lot better quarterbacks in the Big Ten at that time. Oh, now we are left on a cliffhanger. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he said he was about to be. He said he was about to be driving on the opposite part of the highway. Maybe when we reconnect with him in his audio, we'll find out.
He's still not. He
thinks
he's
still don't hear you, Mitch. He's trying, but he's not back.
This car play is going to be. It's like, I just hope he's cussing and we can't hear it. Like just screaming obscenities, expletives at his phone.
Mitch, if you want, maybe try dropping out and rejoining altogether. That may or may not fix it, but I'm excited to find out what happens with him. But who knows?
I mean, what was your big takeaway from the weekend, from the Western Kentucky game?
Well, kind of just exactly. I'm still very happy overall, just with the fact that in 3 games, Indiana wasn't necessarily in a position that they wanted to be in any of those 3 games.
Yeah.
But they did exactly what they weren't able to do at any point last season, which is show some resiliency in all 3 of those games in different fashions. In the first game, they had a game-winning touchdown drive against a conference opponent.
Yep.
Second game, you're down 10-0 at halftime against an FCS opponent that you handled easily last year when you were 2-10. In game 3, you're playing a very competent Western Kentucky opponent that you played last year on the road. You take them to overtime. You get that 2-point conversion for 1. That's enough pressure no matter who you're playing against. And then Charles Campbell hits a game-winning field goal when just a week ago he missed 2 bunnies, even though it was in the rain.
Right.
So I think you go ahead.
Am I back?
You're
back.
He's
back. Mitchell's back.
This is outrageous, man. What is happening?
Outrage.
That was absolute. I can hear. What was so annoying is I could hear you guys. I was responding, obviously, very intelligently, because that's just obvious. And no one could hear anything. And I don't know why. It was switching. I had my AirPods in. It was going in one AirPod, but not the other. Then it was playing through the car. I don't know what is happening. I am not smart enough for all of this.
Smart House has taken over. Smart Car has taken over.
I am telling you.
It cut off at the good part where you got to PF. What is it? PFF, Pro Football Focus.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was, whoa. Now what have I done?
You're fine.
All the lights just came on. And I don't know why all the lights came on in this car, but whatever. So what I was going to say, did you see the stat where they have the expected win totals?
No, for Indiana?
Yes. Well, they have them for everybody. And I think the stat was for 3-0 teams, Indiana had the least expected wins, 0.8 expected wins.
Wow.
And for 2-1 teams, I think they still, when you include them, still had the lowest expected win total.
Wow.
It was crazy, that stat. But I think it's kind of refreshing because recent memory, at least, Indiana always feels like their expected wins should be 9 and they actually have 5. So it's kind of nice to flip that script a little bit.
Yeah, I
Indiana
think so.
just tends to go the opposite of where expectations lie.
Yes.
If Indiana, and you could just base it off the past 2 seasons. I mean, if you go from 2020 to 2021 to 2022, so far it's kind of like the Northwestern effect, where every other year something positive and the negative happens. Indiana didn't really have expectations in 2020. They go 6-2. In 2021, they're expected to challenge Ohio State for a chance at the East Division title. They completely wet themselves and go 2-10. This year, people are apparently counting them to only win 0.8 of a game. However you do that.
The rest of the way. Is that the rest of the way?
No. That was just through 3 games.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they redid it, recalibrated through the 3 games that Indiana was just expected to win 0.8 of the 3 games. And I just thought that stat was crazy.
That is crazy.
Wow. Ooh.
Well, let's go ahead and get into Indiana's next opponent, a rematch of last year's. What happened, Mitchell?
That car. What are you doing? I'm trapped. I am trapped.
I guess before we actually get into it, are you on the opposite side of the highway yet?
No, I was in reverse for like 500 feet, so the semis could. Yeah, I mean, this is a bad deal. This is not good. Is that better?
I'm so glad. Again, I won't say this anymore, but I'm so glad we're documenting this.
This is crazy town. There are 1,000 fire trucks 1,000 feet that way, but they can't get here because there's not enough room or something. I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know what's going on. This is a nightmare. I may lose you guys again because I have to start my car and pull.
Okay, that's fine.
Oh boy.
I'll tell you what. If I was Mitchell and I wasn't doing this podcast, and I'm sure, honestly, I could probably speak for him on this as well. I would be swearing. I would be. I can't even imagine. I've been in a similar situation, not in his circumstances by any stretch, not where I'm traveling a long distance. And that's in and of itself. If you're sitting in traffic and you're in park for more than 30, 45 minutes, that's frustrating. And Mitchell is trying. He's already been on the road for how long, Mitchell?
5.5 hours.
Already on the road for 5.5 hours. You're supposed to arrive in Indiana at 3 a.m. That's already horrible. You're going to be exhausted by the time you get to your destination. And now it seems, I mean, if I were you, Mitchell, I'm assuming you're going to be stopping at some point in a hotel, not even in Indiana.
I hope so. I may be sleeping in this car. We are nowhere near getting this resolved. Nowhere near.
Do you see flames?
No, but the semi is on its side. Across, there's only 2 lanes. It's across both lanes. I don't know. I wouldn't even know how to start to fix this.
I don't know how they're going to fix that either. Oh, but gas is not cheap either. I mean, this might be a 6-hour ordeal. I might run it. I might be able to pick you up on my way up to Indiana next week.
I'm telling you, I may not get to Indiana until Thanksgiving. Like, the truck, how fast were you going? Oh, man.
What if the truck has Indiana license plates?
No, it probably has South Carolina license plates. Drive like maniacs down there.
That is South Carolina, Florida, and Missouri are the worst, in my opinion.
Man, just drifting into turns for no reason.
It's a little Grand Theft.
Okay, we can talk. We can talk some football now. We can talk some football.
Hey, any update? Any update on your situation is welcome. People are invested. We're obviously invested. This is hilarious. Horrible for you, but hilarious to listen to.
Yeah,
so
I mean, like,
you can
look,
provide
can you see this? Can you
I
see
can,
this?
yes.
There are some, like, I am just trapped. I'm fully trapped. I don't know if I can even get out of this car. Barely. This is not good. It's kind of, it was so shocking at first. It's starting to dawn on me how really not good this is.
Right.
It's like the stages of grief, except it's more like the stages of despair. I don't know.
Do you have snacks and like a bottle just in case?
I don't have anything in this car.
Oh boy.
Because I was not expecting. I mean, I do have a full tank of gas, which is good.
That's good.
But yeah, I mean.
And there's no way at all for you to get in like the emergency lane and get in the median and turn around.
I'm going to try to get out and see if you like, there is a semi parked. I'm up against the separator, the barrier on the left lane. There is a semi that's pulled off in front of me diagonally. There's a semi right next to me. And there's a semi that's diagonal behind me. And there's 3 cars up in this little crevice that they've created with the semis. I can't even see the other side of the road. There's nowhere to go.
Oof.
This is so bad. Let's talk some football so I don't blow my top.
Let's talk some football. Indiana plays Cincinnati in Cincinnati this Saturday at 3:30 p.m. A rematch of last year's what many people, especially on the Indiana side, thought was like the marquee non-conference game. There was so much hype going into it. The Memorial Stadium was sold out. I can't forget about and this wasn't a good thing, the students that after the game went over to a Cincinnati tailgate and flipped their tables. Jeez. I mean, there was a lot of emotion surrounding this game. You could find it on one of the Barstool accounts. But yeah, there was a lot of hype going into this Indiana-Cincinnati game. The big story out of it, obviously, Micah McFadden's targeting call that seemingly had some sort of magical impact on Cincinnati's momentum. They were able to turn around everything after being down to Indiana 14-0, and Indiana ended up losing the game, and that was the beginning. You could realistically say that the Iowa loss was the beginning of all of the misfortune, but this was the second layer of that. Yeah. But this week they go in looking for revenge. They are 16.5-point underdogs right now. And I don't know about you. Mitchell and I were talking about this briefly yesterday. But 16.5, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to a lot of people. And you all can give your takes on this in a second. But obviously, this Cincinnati team doesn't have Desmond Ridder. It doesn't have Alec Pierce and a couple of other wide receivers. I know they're returning a lot of their overall personnel. But to me, when you look at how bad Indiana was last year, they played a good Cincinnati team very well. And Indiana right now is playing well enough to get 3 wins. And Cincinnati isn't what they, or at least, I mean, they're already 2-1. Cincinnati was undefeated going into the college football playoff. That's the reason they were in it last year. So to me, it doesn't make sense why Indiana is getting disrespected by Vegas in this situation.
So I'm going to say something real quick, and then I'll let Mitchell add his comments on this. But the one thing I want to say is a lot of people think that line is out of question, or maybe not out of question, but maybe the best way you put it was disrespectful. And when I look at the line too, I'm like, why is it that large? But here's the thing: the line is 16.5 in favor of Cincinnati. The over/under is 57. If I tell you the final score of that game is 37-20. That's a Cincinnati cover, and that's right at the over/under. I think that's a realistic score in this game. 37-20. When you put it I agree with you that 16.5 seems like a lot, but when you put it into the score format of 37-20, I'm like, I feel like Indiana could play well and still lose that game by that score.
I feel like Jeffrey the Greek put you up to this.
He did not, but I did record the Eyes on Big, and that's what Vegas is saying. And when I saw that written out like that, I was like, yeah, I can see why. I can see why. That seems like a very reasonable. It's not a 30-point spread. 16.5. It seems weird to me that people are betting on it, but it's not.
Mitchell,
I guess it's not how the
I'll share more thoughts on it.
Yeah, I don't like you to use logic. I don't like you to be all smart with the numbers. I don't like that. The spread is way too big because Indiana is tougher than that. I would hammer the Hoosiers to cover. I don't care what the over-under is. 16.5 is too many. Cincinnati doesn't have the same, and I think they're good, but they don't have the same firepower they had last year. Sauce Gardner or whatever his name isn't there anymore. Indiana's receivers are going to have to step up, but I think Indiana's going to be a bigger problem for Cincinnati than people think, especially if we can get the running backs going. I would like to see a little more of why am I blanking on the kid's name? Henderson, 26?
Yep.
Yeah, I would like to see that kid more. I think he runs really hard and explodes through the hole. If we can get him going and get Bazelak into some rhythm with some chunk yardage plays, little check down, spread the field kind of stuff, which they started to get into, making the game a lot easier than throwing. Although this is going to go off of what I was saying. I was saying they were tough, but now I'm going to go back to Western Kentucky. Did you guys count the same amount of lateral, like basically halfback passes that I counted? Did they try to do that 3 times?
They did it at least twice that I can think of.
Yeah. Okay. I think it was 3.
We're going to eliminate those. Okay, update. There is police now looking at the skid marks from where the truck, there are flashlights all around me. This is a crime scene.
What are the odds we get you to go out there and talk to a police officer?
I would say not good.
Ask them what do you think about me asking them what they think about IU versus Cincinnati?
What do you think
about What do you think about the 16.5-point spread? Dustin's been way too logical. Don't you think he's dumb?
Exactly. Can you use those? Can you break out your handcuffs and go arrest him, please?
Yeah, I know you're busy right now, but I would like to do a citizen's arrest at least. So that's. Oh. But that was a long way of saying I think Indiana's going to be a lot tougher than that. I think the spread is way too high. They're playing well. They battle. They do a lot of dumb stuff, but their defense makes the plays when they need to. I don't think they've been quite as good at corner as they need to be. I think they'll see Cincinnati, remember what happened last year, and feel like that's one that got away and kind of sent their season spiraling, as you alluded to, John. And I think that 16.5 is just too much. I anticipate a pretty good game on Saturday. I don't know if they get it done, but a pretty dang good game is my guess.
Yeah, I'll also be stealing from, and I say stealing, I had this thought before this guy said it, but he said it before me, so I guess I am stealing it. Our friend Chronic Hoosier said that he 100% thinks whoever wins the turnover battle here will win this game, and I think that's 100% accurate. I mean, there may be no turnovers, and if that's the case, it doesn't matter, but I think it's going to be key for Indiana to get at least +2 in the turnover margin. I don't know if that's, fumble recoveries, interceptions, whatever it may be. You got to get something, but you've just got to take away those points, those opportunities, because Indiana has always been good about capitalizing on those. And so I think that's one of the key elements for Indiana if they're going to have a chance in this. But there's one other thing I want to hit on too, back to what Dustin said about the 37-20. While I do think that is, it seems like a realistic score, I think if we come in here next week and that is the score, 37-20,
I'm going to look really smart.
Well, you'll look really smart for one.
I'll look so dumb.
That seems more like a result that last year's Indiana team puts up against Cincinnati. In how does that make sense? Because I know they played Cincinnati last year. I'm probably not making much sense of this. But
you would have thought last year's team put up 37-20 and this year's team played it Cincinnati close, right? Am I getting it?
Let's say you play Cincinnati in game 9 instead of game 3. And their season's already last year. You put the Cincinnati game at a different point in the schedule last year.
Okay. Didn't IU play Rutgers
instead of it being
game of the season?
Sure. And that we all know how that turned out. But anyway,
this is amazing.
Yeah. Let's say you move Cincinnati to later in the season.
This would have been 70-0. If it was the
very well
game
could
of
have
the
been.
year,
and that's true because the offense
got roasted by Rutgers.
My point is, I think if we're talking next week and it's 37-20, it seems like we're going to be talking about the same old problems. And I'm not saying it can't happen, but we'll be talking about a lot of the issues that Indiana dealt with last year to maybe a little bit of a lesser extent. Because if you're looking at 37-20, obviously the offense was able to put up some points. But on top of that, your defense is just as suspect, if not more suspect, than it was against Western Kentucky and everybody else they played up to this point.
Here's what concerns me about this game, statistically speaking, is that Cincinnati doesn't have a mobile quarterback like Desmond Ridder, but they do have a consistent quarterback in Ben Bryant. He's completing over 70% of his passes. Off the top of your head, do you guys know what Indiana's defense is allowing, the completion percentage?
Probably close to 70.
It's over 64, and it's the second worst in the Big Ten, and it's one of the worst in the nation. So they've got to – this goes back to the point of you winning the turnover battle. They've also got to get pressure on the quarterback. And outside of Cam Jones and Dasan McCullough, they have not done it. Their defensive line has not played well, I don't think, for the experience that they've got up there. So this is a tailor-made type of situation for getting pressure on the quarterback, a guy who can't run. I think he's minus 51 rushing yardage. So you should be able to at least get to him. If you can get to him, then I think this defense has a shot. If he's able to stand back there in the pocket, he gets a clean pocket all game, he will pick Indiana's defense apart, and that's where I think the 37-20 score looks a lot more logical. I don't even think that's a word. Logical.
It's legitimate and logical.
There you go. You just created a new word that means the same thing as the other two words.
Exactly. Legitimate.
Yeah, I mean, everything on defense starts with the D-line. When you look at SEC teams, they have great defensive backs, but their defenses are so good because of their front four and their linebackers. That's where you create so many problems for an offense. Anytime you can get the quarterback's feet moving a half second faster than they should be, it throws off the timing of the entire offense. And then that's when the turnovers start coming that you alluded to, John. When Indiana was their 2020 year, they were so good. They didn't score a heck of a lot of points because they had a great offense. Right. They created problems on defense. They mixed things up. They came with safety blitzes from the field, which is something you never see. Corner blitzes. They had twists, all kinds of stuff going on that made it hard on the offense. And that just gets them out of rhythm. And then the quarterback's rushing a little bit. That's going to be huge, huge, huge on Saturday. And I think this is a primetime opportunity for that because of the kind of way that things have been going for Cincinnati in the first couple games.
Anything else y'all want to hit on that we haven't talked about for Indiana Cincinnati? I just think that one other question I think we can address before we move on.
Yeah.
If Indiana wins this, they'd be 4-0 if they lose their 3-1. And then you're looking at the Nebraska game to potentially be 5-0 or 4-1. That's a really good start no matter what this result is. And I think the question that I'm getting at, do we feel like Indiana in this moment, regardless of the result, is in a good position to get bowl eligibility because you still have Nebraska on your schedule? You have Maryland and Rutgers. Not that those are not guaranteed wins by any stretch, but they're two winnable games. You also have Michigan State, who got throttled, at least defensively, by Washington last week, even though that, I believe, will also be a road game for Indiana. So that's just 4. And we said how many winnable games? Dustin, you said 6, I think. I said 5 on the rest of the schedule.
I think when you look at Nebraska, I think if you look at Cincinnati, Nebraska, Rutgers, Maryland, Michigan State, and I think Purdue. You could toss Purdue. Yes. I think you could toss Purdue in there. Yes. I do think they have 6 winnable games. That doesn't mean they're going to win all 6 of those. I just think they have a shot at winning those games. The one caveat, I think, yes, overall the record, looking at it 3-1, you're in a good spot. I think if you asked any Indiana fan before the season, hey, you're 3-1 through the first 4 games, they would take that 10 times out of 10. It does matter what it looks like on Saturday because Cincinnati is by far the best team they've played. So if they get beat 52-6, then you lose a lot of confidence in the rest of the season because Maryland looks better, Rutgers looks better, Michigan State doesn't look as good as they were last year, but they're not going to roll over. Like that's a tough fighting team, and some of these other teams on the schedule. So if you are able to look competitive, to hang tough, I don't even think 3 touchdowns. I don't even think if you get beat 42-21, as long as it looks competitive for a majority of that game, I think you're still in a good spot. But if you just get blown out of the water from the first quarter on, then I think you lose a lot of the momentum you had gained through the first 3 weeks.
And then Nebraska sees that, and they're reeling, as everybody knows, and they're like, okay, we have a chance to get back at Indiana for what happened a few years ago. And then at that point, if you're losing to a Nebraska team that, is going through what they're going through, and I don't think Nebraska has, a poor team in terms of like their talent, but with all of their outside issues that have become the main problem with them, if you can't, I mean, we won't be too negative. This will be the last part we go down this rabbit hole, unless Mitchell has something. If you can't hold a candle to this kind of Nebraska team and you start spiraling again, man, we'll be looking at, essentially a mirrored image of last season. If Indiana can, for some reason, lays a big fat egg this Saturday.
I think this is the first time. Well, why I don't think that will be the case. Not that they've been playing tense. I don't feel that. Every game so far this year has felt like must win. Am I cutting out?
Yeah, we can hear you, but you are cutting out a little bit.
Okay. How about now? I moved a little bit.
I think you're good. Yeah.
Okay. This is the first time all season that I think it isn't a must win when you're pointing at the schedule like, okay, we need this one.
Yeah.
I'm happy. I wish Vegas would push it to 22, 25 because you start to just play free. And like nobody thinks we can win anyways. We're going on the road. This is a playoff team from last year. This is one of the 4 best teams in the country last year, and you beat them. You punched them out to start the game. Is what you did. You took it right to them, and we're on pace before the McFadden targeting call. That game could have been 5 touchdowns. It was going to be a blowout. You take a lot of confidence from that. You go into Nippert Stadium, the Nip, whatever they call it, and you punch them in the mouth again. I think that this is a prime opportunity. The Nip. My buddy played quarterback at Cincinnati, and that's what he calls it. I'm like, you can't win games at a place called the Nip. What are we talking about?
So you're going into the Nip with big, thick energy.
Yeah. That's brutal. That's brutal. But, yeah, I mean, I think you're just going to be able to finally play free and hopefully open up the playbook. And this will be the first time I think we see the real Indiana and what they're going to be.
Yeah, I 100% agree. We're gonna go ahead and move on. We're not gonna do message board comments this week because we're already going a little long, and because we've had Mitchell's episode of traffic that we've been following along with, and we're gonna go ahead and.
I'm still sitting in the same position.
We're gonna go ahead.
This is not good.
Maybe if we have time at the end, I'll read a couple message comments, but we're gonna go ahead and get into our pick'ems. Let's see what we have after last week. Joe sent me the totals after last week. In the lead right now is Mitchell. He is
nice.
23. I don't know why there's 2 different records here, but
against the spread,
23-3. Maybe he's counting both. You're 23-3 and 32-7.
Okay,
I'm in second place, 20-6, 28-11. Dustin's in third, 19-7, 28-11. Joe in fourth, 18-6, 27-10.
I don't know anything.
Mitchell.
Okay.
Do what?
Yeah,
I don't know anything.
Gotta stay steady. Just gotta stay steady.
So yeah, we'll go ahead and.
What?
Hey, I'm gonna give you a thumbs down again if you can. I'm sure you can see us.
Okay. Yeah. Just getting out on the highway.
This is
some good motorcycle ASMR for those of you listening back home.
There we go.
All right, Mitchell, you're muted on StreamYard. Just FYI. And if that's on purpose, that's fine.
Now we're good.
It's really loud out here.
Are you ready for pick'ems, Mitchell?
I think so, if you can hear me.
We got you.
One of these games is actually in action right now. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I would say skip that one because it's already got a score, too.
And it's got an FCS opponent, too, so it's kind of a gimme. So everybody just gets Illinois with the points, whatever. Illinois-Chattanooga currently 7-0 as we speak. You'll be listening to this tomorrow, and there's already a final score. But I'm going to moving on into Saturday's games. First up, we have Maryland at Michigan, number 4 Michigan, with a 17-point cover for Michigan.
I'm going to do a deep dive here just briefly. Maryland is 0-9 against ranked Big Ten teams under Mike Locksley. The average margin of defeat is 39 points. I think that Michigan rolls again to this one. I think Michigan wins big and sends a big message to the Big Ten.
I think they do as well. I've got Michigan covering. Yeah. As much as Maryland might be improved, it wouldn't surprise me if this is like a 56-7 type of score.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes. Michigan's good. I don't like it, but they're good.
All right, next up, we have Central Michigan at number 14, Penn State. Penn State, 28-point favorites. Dustin, what do you got? Oh, I need to give Joe's pick. He's got, before we move on, Michigan. He also says Michigan will cover. So we got that covered now. Dustin.
All right. I think Penn State does cover. I think this game, because of the big win last week at Auburn, I think there's a little bit of a hangover effect in the first quarter, but eventually Penn State will flex their muscle, beat Penn State, and they'll pummel Central Michigan into oblivion.
Yep, I agree. More action from the directional Michigan schools. It seems like a rite of passage for Big Ten teams to play at least one of the Michigan directional schools at some point. So I think Penn State will cover as well. Mitchell.
I'm going to take the Chippewas to cover. What'd you say it was, 28?
28.
Yeah, I'm going to take them to cover. I think they lose by 17 or 14, but it's a game longer than the Penn State faithful want it to be. That's my guess.
There you go. Mitchell goes against the grain. Let's see what Joe has for this one. Joe has Penn State covering. All right, moving forward, I'm skipping the next one because it's my game of the week and the one after that because it's Indiana. Next up, Iowa at Rutgers. Rutgers is underdogs by 7.5. Dustin.
Yeah, I think this is, first of all, this is going to be punting porn for anybody watching. Adam Corsack, Torrey Taylor, the field position. I think there should be an over-under on starting field position in this game, and I don't know, maybe about the 17-yard line. I think this is going to be a defensive game. I don't think a lot of teams are going to put, or either team's going to put a lot of points on the board. I'm picking Rutgers to cover the 7.5.
There you go. Yeah, I don't know that I will pick them to cover, but this seems like a bad situation for Iowa. There's already a lot of bad things going on with their offense. Spencer Petras, just nothing about their offense is getting it done. And everybody's calling for Brian Ferentz's head. Rutgers has all the momentum in the world. This sets up perfectly for them to get their first, and I don't want to call it a marquee win. It's not like this is a ranked Iowa team, but this is a good statement win for Rutgers to be 4-0 and say that Greg Schiano is doing something with this program. So I'm taking Rutgers.
Where is this game?
Rutgers.
It's in Piscataway.
Yep.
The birthplace of college football.
Right.
I like the Rutgers pick. I may take Rutgers to win outright, not just cover.
There you go.
I like it.
That's my pick. Rutgers outright.
Doesn't beating Iowa automatically mean they cover?
Yes.
Yes.
Because anything, as long as they don't lose by 8, they cover.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joe, let's see. Joe chose Iowa. He didn't mention whether they cover or not, but he did take the Hawkeyes. Next up, we have Wisconsin at number 3, Ohio State. Ohio State currently a 19-point favorite in this game. And it wouldn't surprise me. Oh, Dustin, I'll let you go first since you've been going first with this week.
Look, I think Wisconsin is probably better than that loss to Washington State. They were really sloppy in that game, but every time Wisconsin plays Ohio State, they just do not have the speed to keep up with the Buckeyes. I think Graham Mertz is better, but I don't think he's a lot better. So even though this is a big spread, I think Ohio State makes a statement in like a 38-17 type of game.
Yeah, I'm thinking along those same lines. Wisconsin, although they have looked better since their disappointing loss to Washington State, it just seems like, oh, this reminds me of something too. I can't get off topic, but I should have had this ready for earlier in the podcast, but I'll mention it afterward. I'm choosing Ohio State to basically cover this, and maybe by more than 19. But I'll go ahead and ask this real quick before we get to Mitchell. Did you all see the video of the Big Ten coaches choosing who they would want to play as them in a movie?
Yes, I did. And Paul Chryst was no fun once again.
And Paul Chryst says, there'd never be a movie about me or something like that.
Yeah, nobody's making a movie about me.
Which is true. I think he enjoys being the no fun coach, though.
Probably.
That's his character. So yeah. That's all I can think about when I think of Wisconsin. Mitchell, what's your pick for this game?
First of all, did you guys see the truck that was overfilled?
I did, yeah.
No.
I just walked up there and put it on my screen.
I saw
it. It is way worse. It's way worse than I thought it would be. Wow. Man, that was a bad idea to walk up there. It is not good. That's a bad deal. The driver is out. He's okay.
Oh, that's good.
His truck is not okay. It is all over the road. Couldn't be more.
Did you get their opinion on the Indiana-Cincinnati game?
You mean Wisconsin or Ohio State?
Both teams saw police officers and EMTs. They looked busy. So I think the Buckeyes win by like 4. That's my guess.
By 4 touchdowns?
By 40. 4-0.
40. There we go. So he's picking.
I think this is a blowout.
State to cover.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
All right. And we got, looking at Joe.
This is
Joe
really hard to do this podcast from here.
I know. You got a lot going on there, buddy.
Yeah.
I have no service. Close. I'm in the middle of the woods. This is not good.
And we can't see him.
And I'm sorry to all the listeners. Pitch black. This has got to be really hard to listen to as well. Because I can't hear you guys because I have to be outside to have service. This is disjointed. I apologize.
We'll wrap it up here shortly. We'll get through the rest of these pick'ems. Next up, Miami of Ohio at Northwestern. Northwestern is a 7.5-point favorite in this one.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why. I think Miami of Ohio, they played Kentucky tough. They actually played Cincinnati tough. I think Miami of Ohio wins because Northwestern just lost to a not good Southern Illinois team.
I want to take the same as you, but I just looked down at what I picked earlier this week, and I'm going to try to justify it by saying that Northwestern will win this game because they don't know their identity yet. They play well sometimes, other times they don't, but Pat Fitzgerald's going to rally the troops and get them more focused, the more focused that they were like when they played Nebraska. So I think Northwestern wins this. Mitchell?
I agree. I think Pat Fitzgerald's a great coach. Last week was embarrassing. That's not something that he will take lightly. I think Northwestern covers, but not by much. But I think they play a lot better this week.
Let's see what Joe took. Joe has... Man, I forgot what game we were doing. Did he pick the Northwestern game at all? Oh, he said Northwestern wins, but they don't cover. So that means it has to be less than 7.5, 7 points or less. Moving forward, next up is Florida Atlantic at Purdue. Purdue, a 17.5-point favorite in this one. Dustin, what do you have?
Big time cover. What I want to see from Purdue is just clean up the sloppy penalties that they had in that Syracuse game and find a receiver not named Charlie Jones. But I think they cover big.
Yeah, I think that this is a game that will be more of a blowout than it would have been had they come away with a Syracuse victory. You may see more of a hangover, but they're going to be coming into this with some fire. They know they have something to prove here. I think Purdue will win and cover. Mitchell.
Agree. I don't think they need to find somebody besides Charlie Jones. That guy's a monster. He leads the country in all the stats or in all the categories for a reason. I think they cover, and they're getting a lot better.
There you go. Joe also has Purdue covering. 2 more games, one being Indiana at Cincinnati. As we talked about earlier, Cincinnati currently 16.5-point favorites. We will take a score on this one. Dustin, what do you have?
I think Indiana plays this game well. The way I kind of forecast this game is one of 2 ways. If it's tied or Cincinnati has the lead at halftime, I think the Bearcats are going to roll. If Indiana has a lead at half, I think they've got a shot to win. But I just don't see enough plays being made by the defense in this one, and I don't think the offense has the firepower. I have Cincinnati 34, Indiana 24.
I have Indiana. I won't say the score yet, but I think Indiana will jump out to a lead here. Cincinnati has proven to be a second-half team so far this season. I think Indiana will have a lead going into halftime, but I think as the pressure mounts, as Cincinnati begins to sort of force their way back into this game, I think a late touchdown will give the Bearcats the ultimate victory here. I think 31 Cincinnati, Indiana 24. Mitchell.
Guys, I just got a terrible update.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
I was standing out here. It is currently 9 p.m.
It is.
The expected time for this to be cleared up.
Should we guess before you tell us?
This is Pick'em.
This is Pick'em's. Dustin, how long is it going to take for them to clear up this mess?
I'm going to guess 2 a.m.
I've already been here for an hour.
I'm going to say, I was thinking, I'm going to go with my first thought. It may be a horrible guess, but I'm going to say 5 a.m.
Oh, you guys overshot it. Thank you for doing that. It's only 1 a.m., so 4 more hours of sitting on this highway. I could literally play a round of golf in the time that I will be sitting on this highway. I digress. I think I always get in trouble because I gamble with my heart instead of my head. So I think Indiana is going to punch Cincinnati in the mouth just like they did last year. And I think this year's team is a little bit different. They've shown that they can find a way to sweat out wins and grind out wins they don't deserve. I think we'll score some points. I'm guessing like a 34-30. 31-28. That's my final answer. 31-28.
31-28. Let's see what Joe gave us. Joe gave us a 35-24 Cincinnati victory. That's not what you said, is it, Dustin?
I said 34-24, so we were close.
There you go. Really close there. One more game. It's, in my opinion, the Big Ten game of the week, and then we'll get some final thoughts on Mitchell's situation and figure out what he's going to do tonight. But we have Minnesota at Michigan State. Minnesota, 3-point favorites on the road. And a lot of people really high on the Gophers right now. They took it to Colorado, who might be one of the worst teams in college football.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Mohamed Ibrahim is back this year, and he's already put up 7 touchdowns, almost 500 yards. Michigan State has a very vulnerable defense. And so, Dustin, what do you got for this one?
Yeah, what's funny is we always seem to talk about Minnesota's offense, but their defense has allowed 17 points this season. They lead the Big Ten in total yards allowed. What I'm going to be interested to see, I think they can get pressure on the quarterback. What I'm going to be interested to see is what do they do in the passing game without Chris Ottman-Bell, their best wide receiver? Can they get Dalen Wright involved, Mike Brown-Stevens, Brevin Spam-Ford? I think that Michigan State showed some issues in the run game. I still don't trust their pass game. And I think Minnesota can just ground this one out. So I think Minnesota beats Michigan State, and finally the Gophers get ranked in the top 25.
There you go. Well, I am thinking Michigan State is going to come out. I know we've said this phrase a lot during Pick'ems today, but they're going to be fired up and pissed off because of that loss to Washington on the road. They're going to have to prove themselves again against a Minnesota team that's very excited, very hyped up, as you were talking about, trying to get in that top 25. I think because it is at home, Michigan State will pull this one out. Mitchell.
Yeah, Minnesota's just not a team that I would want to play. I think they're tough. They're just really solid, pretty much all over the field. Michigan State showed that they are not solid all over the field. Michael Penix tore them up. And when Penix got rolling, when he was with Indiana, you knew that things were running downhill and it looked easy, and maybe that's what it was. But we also know some of his history of being a little inaccurate and maybe getting some happy feet, and he just looked settled in, had really no pressure. He was dialed in. I think that Minnesota wins pretty easily in East Lansing.
There you go. Joe also took Michigan State. So 2 of us took Michigan State, 2 of us with Minnesota. So we'll have to hear his thoughts next week on everything. But before we wrap things up, let's go ahead. Mitchell, what else do you want to tell us before we get off here about, I don't know, what are your plans for the night? Do you even have an idea of what you're going to do?
If I can find enough light, I'm on a pretty flat part of concrete right here. I honestly may get out some golf balls and hit putts. I'm not even lying. I've got to find some light and some room. There's a nice little stretch of road right here, but I just got to find some light. I wish I had a telescope. The stars are fantastic. I did see, did you guys, I don't know if you guys are star guys, space guys. I enjoy it. I like looking up, and I do have a telescope. But Monday, Jupiter is as close as it'll ever be to the Earth, or as close as it's been in 55 years to Earth. So
wow.
That's a little
bit
that
be the second brightest object in the sky after the moon at night.
Yes. I think this is we should start doing this. For the people that stick with us for the whole hour, we should just do a little tidbit. And they can tweet it at us like, can't wait to see Jupiter or something. And that's how we know the real true fans.
That's right. There you go. If you've listened to the whole show, good idea, Mitchell. If you've listened and or watched to the whole show, either comment on YouTube or comment on the Twitter post that has the links. Can't wait to see Jupiter on Monday, or in some form or fashion use that phrase. Good idea, Mitch.
That is a good one. I like it.
We're getting some, what's that called? Engagement. Interaction.
Yes.
I like that.
Some engagement. And this is a much more manageable time frame. We're just under an hour and 10 minutes, more like an hour and 5 if you look at the total time for the audio episode right now. But yeah, I guess that about will wrap it up for us.
Yeah, man.
Obviously, yeah. Thanks for listening and watching as always. Be sure again, and like I say, check out Indiana Sports Beat Radio on YouTube every day, Monday through Friday during the week. Or on the radio, ESPN 97.7 The Ref in Evansville, or WBRO 89.9 in Marengo. Jim would be very happy to see you and chat with you each and every day. Dustin's on with us as well. Mitchell joins us on Fridays with Jeffrey the Greek. So tomorrow, or if you're listening to this today, be sure to check that out. Thanks for listening and watching. As always, we will be back next week to talk about everything that happened in this Cincinnati, Indiana game and much more. Thanks for listening.